For those of you who own, or especially those of you who want to go ahead and buy some Solana, you actually, and I do mean this, have no time to waste. I dove deep today into Solana and the metrics to find something out that actually really did shock me. Really shocked me, okay? And to cut a long story short, I'll tell you right now, it's got a lot to do with the way money flows into crypto. We all know this chart right here. Money flows into Bitcoin, then out into Ethereum, and then into large caps, and then trickles down the list until we go to micro caps. But I think, based on what I've found today, Solana is likely going to break away from the large cap classification and actually be in a league all of its own, like Bitcoin and like Ethereum. This would mean Solana would be up there with the likes of Bitcoin and Ethereum, again in a whole league of its own, but almost creating what I'm going to be calling a super coin. I know, people love it or they hate it. I get it, right? I know I'm being a part of both of those sides. I've hated Solana and I've loved Solana, and now I'm in the middle. But facts is facts, and unfortunately in a space like crypto, it's not what is objectively true, it's what the majority thinks is true. And I do believe a majority of people, as we're seeing with a lot of these new projects migrating to Solana, believe Solana is here to stay, or at least will do extremely well in this bull run. So I am here today to present this to you. Stay tuned, guys. Buckle up. It's going to be a pretty jaw-dropping video, I think, for a lot of you. Now, before we start, as always, guys, to support all the hard work that goes into creating these videos, all the long hours, you can hit that like button. That does help support all I do around here. Encourages me to keep coming back. But make sure you subscribe, most importantly. That doesn't benefit me. That's going to benefit you. Trust me right now. Let's begin. Now, I'm going to attempt to make this video quite quick because I want to open a discussion down below. Let's actually have a good conversation, guys, and let's not be hateful to one another. Let's actually open both sides of the story up based on what I'm going to share with you today. And the reason why I say this is because I actually got the idea to make this video from a comment on my latest video. This video right here. And I highly recommend you watch this video, by the way, because you might actually find something else out regarding a context for this video, right? I don't mention Solana specifically in that one, but this comment from Zombie Corp came in, the idea spawned from that video. And he said, well, the second trigger may not be ETH this time. Sol looks far more likely, and since it's 4 times smaller than Ethereum, its potential raise will look far more appealing to investors. And what he means by this is that in this traditional money flow method where money flows into Bitcoin, Bitcoin usually goes up first, money flows out of Bitcoin and into Ethereum, and then out of Ethereum into altcoins. He thinks rather than Ethereum being that secondary character here, that secondary trigger that'll bring large caps up, he thinks this might be replaced with Solana. It's 4 times smaller, as he said, and also it's far more appealing altcoin this cycle. And I don't think he's wrong. It actually is a very interesting theory. He might be right. But where this kind of took me was a place that was much deeper, I feel. So that's why I think the discussion down below on this video particularly is one we all need to have. Believe it or not, you help me as much as I help you. So let's begin. So Bitcoin and Solana, upon diving into the dominance, right? So Bitcoin's dominance and Solana's dominance, usually, every other altcoin does not move up with Bitcoin. When Bitcoin gains interest, it's usually the first to move. Everyone goes, oh, Bitcoin, crypto, everyone's getting into Bitcoin, and everyone starts buying Bitcoin, and then it sucks all the interest up out of the market, altcoins, and everything goes into Bitcoin, and Bitcoin soars. When Bitcoin comes down, money trickles down the path because people take profits, they want to speculate more and more and more. But, interestingly, ever since the date of June the 3rd, pretty much, mid last year, these two have been following each other exactly, or at least Solana is following Bitcoin. When Bitcoin pumps, Solana is a few days or a week behind. Pumps, few days or a week behind. And I've tracked this. It follows, okay? So Bitcoin here in the solid, arrow, Solana over here in the dotted arrow. It's crazy. And it's not just on the way up, it's of course on the way down too. Bitcoin starts to drop, Solana isn't too far over. Now again, you might be thinking to yourself, well, Karen, it makes sense. Bitcoin goes up, comes down, alts follow. Well, they don't. They actually don't do that at all. No other asset behaves this way. Literally none. Not even the total 3 crypto, not even Ethereum itself follows Bitcoin. These are actually inversely correlated, which means Bitcoin goes up, Ethereum goes down. Because again, money flows into Bitcoin, usually sucks the whole market dry, and money flows out of Bitcoin, the whole market kind of flourishes and then money trickles down. Okay, so it makes sense that something like Bitcoin and Ethereum are inversely correlated, but it's weird that Solana and Bitcoin are like brother and sister, following up the exact same. I just found that so intriguing to figure out. And I went a little bit deeper than that, right? So Solana and Ethereum are inversely correlated. Exactly. okay, which is just like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Actually, this is even more inversely correlated than Bitcoin. And guess what? Major alts, in this case, versus Ethereum, follow Ethereum. Ethereum's in purple here. You can see these, apart from, AVAX is a little bit off here at this point, but most of them, Doge, Chainlink, Avalanche, they follow Ethereum, okay, which would make sense. These are some of the, as I said, major alts, because if we even have a look, as I'll see in a second here, with the others, which is like excluding the top 10 altcoins, so all the smaller altcoins, they again follow Ethereum. Solana is, as you see right here, in a whole world of its own. This is the major alts again with Ethereum, and Solana's way up here. It's gaining market dominance at a time when it should be losing it as other altcoins yield to Bitcoin. Bitcoin must go up first, everything else comes down. So as you can imagine, at this point, I'm thinking to myself, this is really unusual. This is really strange. Again, no other altcoin in the industry acts like this, okay? Again, this is it here with the others. Others is every single altcoin excluding the top 10 altcoins, and it's just, again, tracking the pretty much all these other altcoins here on average, right? So it's just crazy. And so I kind of thought to myself, well, Solana is growing in dominance with Bitcoin, but it is kind of falling, as you can see here, with the highs and lows of other altcoins to some degree, all the while reacting the opposite to Ethereum. So some of you might be thinking to yourself, well, it's pretty much like it's like a small Bitcoin, basically. It's following Bitcoin, which is really weird. And I would agree. And that led me to my final conclusion here, which is, well, almost final conclusion, that Solana may benefit from alt season and Bitcoin season as a super coin. Again, we can throw these buzzwords around and make ourselves sound like really fancy and all that sort of stuff, but I'm not trying to sound like that. I'm just putting the theory out there, and I want to talk about it with you guys. Or Solana may move with Bitcoin and not as much with altcoins. So it may be like a mini Bitcoin. Okay, so we're currently in Bitcoin season right now. That's why, as you saw before, all altcoins are down. That's why charts look like this. And Bitcoin's right here with Solana. That's what Bitcoin's dominance look like, right? So it's like, why are these two assets up here? Well, we know why Bitcoin's up here, and everything else is down here. So could Sol look like it's going to be one of the strongest altcoins in this cycle because it could be classified as a coin that benefits from the Bitcoin pump and altcoin pumps? Well, we're only going to really know that when Bitcoin finally begins crashing and altcoins take precedence, which will come, okay? In that case, if this is true, it essentially is the definition of a coin that will get us the highest possible gains because it's likely going to be a 5 to 10x from here, somewhere in that realm, as we'll see in a second. But it also is the safest because if it follows Bitcoin and altcoins, I mean, it's just going to keep going up. I mean, theoretically keep going up. Of course, with the market generally, when money pulls out of the market and comes into the market, it can hold its dominance and still lose value, still lose dollar signs. That's just how dominance works. But as long as dominance continues to grow, when the market cap grows overall, when we do have pumps, it will flourish the most all the time. So again, it could look like this, right? Money flows into Bitcoin, Ethereum, then Solana, or simultaneously Bitcoin and Solana, or it could happen at the same time with Bitcoin and Ethereum and large caps. I mean, it's interesting to think about. And again, there is no definite conclusion. We have no final, this is what we think it is, because at the end of the day, we don't have the proof in the pudding with altcoins moving up. Like we don't know what will happen when Bitcoin fizzles out, and we'll see what happens. But again, as what I'm seeing so far, it's inversely correlated to Ethereum, as is Bitcoin. Ethereum kind of moves to the beat of its own drum, doesn't move with alts necessarily, at least history, and it moves so far with the pumps and the dumps with the alts as well. It's all very interesting. Like this coin, I don't know, going into this sort of thing, guys, I'm not usually lost for words. I'm not usually puzzled. I like to find conclusions before making the bloody videos, right, as you can imagine. But this one has me genuinely stumped. That's why I want to, reach out to you guys and see what you all think down below, because I'd love to come to a conclusion with you all. But again, that super coin is coming to my mind. And believe you me, I never used to like Solana. I still think, as we'll see in a second, there are many flaws to this coin. But again, it's not what I think, it's what the majority thinks. And all these projects coming into Solana, they obviously think it's going to do well this cycle, or they wouldn't be a Solana ecosystem project. They just wouldn't do that, okay? So overall, guys, look, if you're going to take one thing away from this video, besides Solana, is that when you're looking to buy altcoins, just try to find the ones that are outpacing the market with dominance. Dominance is the most important metric to look at, because this shows relative strength. This shows strength against all the other altcoins in the market. Now, again, Solana is like in a world of its own over here, which again tells me when we have the money flowing into the market, Solana, as long as it maintains where it is right now and doesn't go like this, the market cap's going to go pretty insane, okay? So it's showing very much so relative strength, and you kind of want to find the ones that are above this blue line here, which is pretty much the accumulation of every single altcoin except the top 10. So AVAX is a big tick. Yeah, okay, Chainlink's down right now, but again, that's probably a bad example. There are going to be a few that are lower than that aren't performing the best at the moment, but they will, some of these will basically have their time in the sun, essentially. Now, if you do find one that is sort of like way out here, that's a very good sign. That's a very, very good sign. As long as it's holding those levels, which Solana is at this point, then it might be a winner for you, okay? So with all that being said, guys, make sure you go ahead and watch that previous video I made, and now I want to touch on some of the most bullish things for this coin, which I think actually support these charts, which support the fact that it could be a super coin. Again, remember, all you guys who hate Solana or love Solana, this is coming from a guy who's been on both sides of the fence, and I've decided to stay in the middle. I don't own Solana in my portfolio because it's not going to get me the personal returns I need in this cycle. I don't care what coin I buy. If it's not going to get me a 10x, I'm not going to buy it a safe 10x, and I didn't catch Solana at $40, so I'm not buying it now for a 3x or a 4x or a 5x, okay? Now, Solana, number one, guys, a bullish factor of this coin is that most of the tokens are out, okay? So if we have a look here on token unlocks, now renamed to Tokenomist, we can see that there's, dilution has still come ahead, but it's inflation only. So if we remove that, it's only inflation, which of course is fine. Inflation is the validators securing the network. They get rewards for their hard work, and usually these guys don't sell their tokens, okay? If you delegate, maybe you want to sell your tokens, but usually validators and delegators of a blockchain network do not decide to dump on the market. These guys usually hodl for the long term, okay? So this isn't a thing to be scared of at all. And I want to point something out as well. Solana has a lot of interesting things to happen, not based on Solana's growth itself, but based on another project, which is Celestia. Celestia, providing sort of this modularity plug-and-play aspect to the crypto ecosystem, is looking to create Solana layer 2s. If this happens, it'll be huge, huge for Solana, of course. Now, Solana's been pretty well known to not want to have layer 2s. It doesn't need to have layer 2s. It doesn't need to scale because it's very fast already. But of course, this would make an interesting sort of narrative, just like the ETH layer 2s have had and gain a lot of attention. This would be massive again for Solana and all the projects that decide to spin up a layer 2 on the network. Now, if you guys don't know what Solana is, it is a unique layer 1 project that is unique because it adds proof of stake with something called proof of history. Basically, it has a central clock on the network, and when transactions come in, the central clock just keeps the exact time and timestamp of the transaction to allow things like parallel transactions. We'll look at this in a second, which just means you can have transactions being processed simultaneously. It's very, very fast. Again, there are definitely some hiccups in terms of like, are the TPS facts real? Blah, blah, blah. I'm not getting into that today. But I don't think they're that important to touch on, maybe for the long term, but for the short term, this cycle, at least the next 12 months, as long as then there's no new narrative that comes out where Solana's a load of BS, basically, and this is the reason, and that's the reason, everyone goes, oh my God, Solana's such a bad project. If that doesn't happen, we're all sweet. Again, it's what the majority thinks, not what the minority thinks in this space. Now, Solana has some pretty insane stats, guys. Everything's going pretty well, like exponential on average here. We have active addresses daily, monthly, yearly. You can see here, this is all going up at an insane rate. The number of new addresses is also increasing, which is fantastic. People are using this thing. And as we'll see here with integrations, I think a lot of it's got to do with some of the partners and some of the Web 2 applications that Solana is now being intertwined with, which is huge. We can see here the transaction fee is also beginning to increase from its lows here in September, which is of course good because we've had a massive lull in the market recently. So this shows maybe we're having some more confidence come back into the network. And of course, the same respects with fees as well, okay? Indication of fees, revenue, and so on is of course a very good thing. Now, if you compare all of these stats to where it was in the last cycle, it's like already 10x the stats. Now, if you have a look at the market cap here as well, we're pretty much lower than the previous high market cap. So I think we have a lot more room to grow. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, Kyron, okay, this was the all-time high. This was a 70, 80 billion market cap back here. We're over here now. How much more does it still have to go? Well, if my sort of theory of a super coin is coming true, or does come true, okay, we saw Ethereum back here at the same market cap, right? It was down here about 70, 80 billion market cap, and this thing from the 70 billion market cap level still almost 8x'd, guys, its market cap. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Solana's market cap is going to almost $500 billion, but I think it's got a little bit more leg to stand on, okay? All those tokens are out, just a bit of inflation is coming out. That won't have at least a high level of pressure or sell pressure on the price of the token. So I think most of it to this degree is just going to be a price shock, if you will, to a certain degree, right? Not to mention, like I said, the ecosystem is massive. Right now it's worth about, where is this, $263 billion, with some of the most interesting projects in the space. With Render, Link, Graph, Pith, one of my favorite, Wormhole, one of my favorite down here as well. Huge stuff. And if you get rid of Tether, USDC, and Solana, the ecosystem is worth $37 billion still. So it's a large ecosystem, one of the biggest in the space. I think the biggest, of course, besides Ethereum. So pretty big stuff here, of course. Not to mention, it is the largest DePIN ecosystem in the entire space as well. Render, Helium, Ionet, all of it. These DePIN projects love Solana. Now, I don't know if you guys know much about crypto and ecosystems and stuff, but usually ecosystems begin to flourish in a certain area like Ethereum with DeFi because you have usually a couple of different applications that are really, really good at what they do. And you have all this sort of auxiliary, all the smaller, still new and up and coming projects gravitating to want to interact with those because it's much faster to do so on the native network than it is to bridge transactions over. So it's kind of created this DePIN atmosphere where everyone's sort of pulling into Solana, which is of course a good thing for Solana because DePIN projects usually have high TPS or they require cheap transactions, but a lot of transactions, which is good for interest. High TPS brings in retail, right? Also, Solana currently has 5.6 million active addresses in the last 24 hours. We touched on this before, but almost 6 billion TVL, okay? Third to that of Tron and, of course, to that of Ethereum, but it is slightly higher than BSC, okay, by over $1 billion. So that's, of course, a very good sign to see, particularly because Solana isn't an old ecosystem either. It really came out of the last bull run towards the middle of it, but never really gained traction in terms of an ecosystem until the bear market and until, of course, this bull market. So that's great. Now, like I said before, they've partnered with a lot of Web2 guys. So Solana Pay over here integrates with Shopify. So this is some pretty big stuff. In a nutshell, basically, this is going to offer Shopify users and merchants, right, a feature with no intermediary, and it's going to eliminate bank fees, chargebacks, and holding times while enabling immediate direct payment and settlement of US dollar stablecoins, okay? Obviously compatible with Solana, but that's USDC and USDT, okay? The extra benefit, of course, is crypto-based benefits, which is things like payment gateways into new commerce experiences that are, leverage crypto technology, basically, token-gated offers, and cross-border payments, as well as the odd NFT loyalty program, if NFTs are even a thing anymore. Also, Visa have gone, hey, this thing's pretty interesting as well, right? Solana Blockchain Network made it a good candidate for payments via Visa's stablecoin settlement pilot program. Three main things that caught Visa's eye. Number one was the fast transactions. Like I said before, parallel transaction processing. The fact that Solana can process transactions in parallel, helping to greatly enhance the network's efficiency. So it can do transactions at the same time simultaneously rather than one after the other. So it can handle that increase in demand if need be. Also, low and predictable transaction costs. This is extremely an important part of crypto, not just having low fees. Predictable fees are also important, but also fees that aren't too cheap. If they're too cheap, you do have DDoS attacks and all these other attacks that can come from it. But the way that Visa sees it, it is extremely viable, and this is why. Solana transaction fees are not only affordable, but they're usually less than 1/10 of a cent, but mainly they're predictable. And being predictable is extremely important for, of course, cross-border settlements. And finally, transaction finality is extremely fast. So you can have finality on your transaction, meaning that your transaction is irrefutable, immutable on the network forever, which is 0.4 seconds, which is very, very fast. And next up, of course, guys, you may or may not know this already, but PayPal has somewhat recently launched their own stablecoin token on Solana. Now, this stablecoin token is quite large. Okay, it's currently about a 600 mil market cap, but it's only on Ethereum and Solana. So the fact that they went to Solana after Ethereum, after being on Ethereum for like 9 months, I think, to test it out, obviously shows they are convicted in Solana. They think Solana is a viable product, and this is just going to offer a whole bunch more use cases for the Solana network if they successfully integrate, some of PayPal's or some of these stablecoins into some of the applications on the network. Overall, lets us use PayPal via stablecoin, if you will, via crypto. Okay. Now, also, it doesn't end, guys. It doesn't end. I'm telling you right now. This is why I had so much stuff to cover in today's video. Franklin Templeton and Citigroup turn to Solana for next-gen financial services. So, Franklin Templeton and Citigroup have decided to adopt the Solana blockchain for their up-and-coming financial services. So Franklin Templeton, these guys have 1.4 trillion. That's a T, by the way. Asset manager plans to launch a mutual fund natively on Solana. Natively, by the way, huge stuff there. while Wall Street giant Citigroup is exploring the blockchain capabilities for smart contracts and cross-border money transfers. Remittances would be massive for the Solana network because obviously that's a lot of transactions happening all the time. Now, lastly, I do have one more thing to mention here, is that the Blockchain Association has also integrated Solana within their 100 members, which is, again, not something I want to sort of sit here and stand by as the best thing. That's why I left it last. But Solana Foundation down here is part of this sort of conglomerate or members that are looking to pretty much push the blockchain technology stack and standards towards the US government and try to say, hey guys, like we're a real thing here. Let's sort of get this technology used within the world and let's kind of bring crypto at the forefront of that. So yeah, all about regulation. So that's of course a very good thing. It's not easy to get into these groups. Of course, Solana being like the number 3 project in terms of market cap, of course it's going to have a place in this list. But at the same time, guys, overall, you got to understand Solana is having a nice mix here of Web 3 and Web 2, which means it's the cross section of both. So Web 3, of course, where we are right now, like Web 3 based projects that are just focused on Web 3, like a DPIN, for example, or DeFi, this usually comes with volatile but high price movements for this bull run. But Solana has this, but it's also working, again, as we mentioned here, with some Web 2 giants looking to branch out into the real world, which means it's also going to benefit in the long term from steady, stable growth. So you want to find projects to invest in that have both of these, not just for long-term success, but also to safeguard yourself. If you invest in a coin and let's say something happens and you go on vacation and you come back in 12 months' time, the bull runs over, at least you know you're in a coin that has exposure to where the industry is moving to next, which is likely frameworks, regulation, and of course, long-term stable growth. And of course, lastly, guys, I do have to mention some of the negatives because it wouldn't be a Solana video without negatives, of course, as you should do with everything. Poke holes in the bloody ship, right? Solana outages, they're a big thing. This coin has had a lot of outages, which has led me in the past to question why so many projects go towards Solana. But I think the evidence today is irrefutable. They're doing this because Solana ecosystem is going to be one of the largest, if not the largest, narrative-based ecosystem in the industry for this cycle. And these DePIN coins are flocking, not just DePIN, but memes as well, are flocking to Solana, which is why I'm bullish on Pith and Wormhole, 2 infrastructure plays for Solana. And lastly, I mentioned as well, Solana does not have a good Nakamoto coefficient score, which meaning it is not decentralized by standards of the Nakamoto coefficient. To me, this is no big deal. Again, this isn't something that 19 scores pretty poor here. This isn't something that guys are going to like sort of eye in on for this bull run and be like, oh, everyone should not buy Solana because it's got a low Nakamoto coefficient score. Avalanche has a low Nakamoto coefficient score. Aptos does. Algorand does. Binance, obviously, shocking over here. Juno, Hedera, like they all do. They all do. I just wanted to point it out so you guys are more informed. Either way, is Solana a super coin? Is it going to benefit from both the Bitcoin pumps and the altcoin pumps? This coin is doing its own thing. We haven't seen this before. I'm really excited to hear what you guys think down below. Let's discuss. Take good care. Talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.